What's up everyone, Aaron Lippany here with Aaron Lippany Design, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to build this really cool Neumorphic animated bar chart. And guess what happens when you click the highlighted data? That's right, you get a slide zoom into this second close-up of the data on another slide. And if you click again, you can bounce right back out to the original. So let's jump right in and get started. As always, we're going to open up PowerPoint and we're going to start by creating a new blank slide and then go to Design, Format Background. We'll do a solid fill. We're going to use the same color we've been using for our whole Neumorphic series, which is hex code E7E8ED. And if you're on a PC, I'm going to include all of the PC decimal codes in the description. Next, we're going to go back to the Home tab. We're going to go to the Shape panel. And we're going to add a rounded rectangle, so just draw one out on your field here, then grab this yellow square and drag it all the way to the right until you get this nice rounded shape. Then we're going to head over into the Format panel, we're going to go to Size, and we're going to change the width to 1.5 centimeters. Now I've switched over to metric because much of my audience is outside of the US, and I'm sorry that I've been working in inches, guys. If you're in the United States and you're on a Mac, you can actually go up to your Apple menu, go to System Preferences, head over to Language and Region, go to Advanced, and then change your measurement units here to metric. Now you will need to quit PowerPoint for the changes to take effect, but that'll get you into the centimeter area. Otherwise, you can just kind of estimate with the inches or do the conversion. Next, we're going to go back to the fill options. We're going to go to gradient fill. We're going to keep the preset. We're going to change the angle to 5 degrees. We're going to change the first gradient color to the gray color we just used. And then we're going to change the lower color to hex code F7, F8, FE. And then we're going to move this gradient from the left side all the way over to 50%. Then we're going to click No Line under the Line section and go up to the Shadow options, go to Presets, do the internal shadow, and then we're going to change the shadow color to hex code A1, A5, B9. Then we're going to change the transparency up to 60%. We're going to change the blur to 10, and we're going to change the distance to 8. And there we've built the first slot. So we're going to move this about where we want this first one, and let's go up to our main reference slide just to see. So we'll need this just a little bit more to the right. And we're going to duplicate this 5 times. Now you don't have to be perfect about your placement, but you should hold Option and Shift while you duplicate this. That'll make it a lot easier to keep these in line. And then you'll drag this one over to the right about where you want that to stop. And then you're going to select all 6 of these slots that you just created. You're going to go to Arrange, Align, and Distribute horizontally. Next, we're going to group these. So Option Command G on a Mac, or you can right click and hit Group. And then we're going to go to Arrange, Align, and Align Center so that we center a line on the slide. And with that group still selected, we're actually going to ungroup by going Shift, Option, Command G, or again, you can right click and hit Ungroup. That way we've got each one of these that can animate in separately later. Then we're going to hit Command C and Command V to copy and paste. We're going to move these approximately into position over the old ones. And then we're going to change all of these fill colors to a solid fill, and we're going to use the shadow gray color. Now we're going to just slide these down holding Shift, and you can see how these will look once we animate them in. Finally, we're going to grab this 5th one, and we're going to change this to a gradient fill. We're going to change the angle to 45 degrees. We're going to move the left handle all the way to the left, and we're going to change this color to our purple, which is going to be hex code 5827ED. And we're going to grab the right handle, and we're going to change this to our pink fill color, which is going to be hex code DC38FF. Now that we've got the colors in place, we're going to change the heights of these bars where we want them, and we're going to slide holding Shift so that we get these aligned properly, and you're just going to align them approximately like this or however you want to. Once you're satisfied with the placement of all the bars, you're going to go up to Shapes, you're going to grab the Rectangle tool, and you're just going to draw a rectangle over the lower part of the slide and release, and then you're going to click and drag the handle to make sure this snaps to the edges of the slide. Once you've snapped it, you're going to click No Line, and then under the fill, you're going to change the solid fill to the same color as our background. Next, we're going to add our horizontal tick lines on the left side of the slide. So we're going to go to Shapes, and we're just going to create a line by clicking and dragging holding Shift. Then we're going to go to our right menu, and under Size, we're going to change the width to 0.2 centimeters. Then we'll go back to the Fill menu, and we're going to change the color to our shadow gray color. Then we're going to go to the top menu and change our weight to 3 points, and we'll change the cap type from flat to round. Now let's grab our line, let's zoom in a little bit, and let's move it a little bit closer and a little bit down. We want it just below the top height of these rounded rectangles. Then while still zoomed in, we're going to hold Option and Shift. We're going to duplicate this 5 times so we have a total of 6 of these items. And then we're going to move the bottom one all the way down until it aligns with the top of this rectangle that we created down here. And you'll get that little prompt showing you that you're aligned. It'll kind of snap to the top of the rectangle. Next, we're going to zoom back out and we're going to select all 6 of these items that we just created. We're going to go to shape format, we're going to go to align, and we're going to hit distribute vertically, and that'll distribute these vertically perfectly across here. Then we'll grab the bottom one and we're going to hold shift and extend this line all the way across. Then we're going to shorten it up a little bit here and we're going to align it center. You can adjust these as needed. I think I'm going to shorten this x-axis just a little bit. Make sure you realign it to center when you do that. And then I'm going to bring these 5 tick marks in just a little bit closer by holding the right arrow key. Next, we're going to add the labels for our y-axis. So we're going to double click on the y-axis and we're going to type in our numbers. So I'm using the font Gibson, which again, you can download, but if you don't have it, no big deal. And I'm going to use Gibson Medium, and these ones are going to be only 14 points. For the text color, we're going to use our shadow gray color, and then we're going to click and drag this into place until it snaps in alignment with our tick mark here. And then we're simply going to copy this one 4 times, so we have a total of 5. We're going to drag the bottom one into place until it aligns with the bottom tick mark. Then we're going to select all 5 of these, and you guessed it, we're going to go to shape format, align, and distribute vertically. Now we'll just change the text in each of these to match the numbers. I'm actually going to select all of these text boxes. I think this might be a little heavy here, so we're going to change to Gibson Light, but feel free to use whatever text looks good to you. Next, we're going to grab one of these text boxes and holding Option, we're just going to copy it down below. We're going to change the label to Helmet 1, and then we're going to select the text box. We're going to increase the size of the font to 16. And then under the options on this side, we're going to click on text options. Make sure you click text options, not shape options. We're going to go to gradient fill, and look at that, our gradient is already in place. Now for this one, I am going to change the font from light back to medium, as I do want the medium font down here at the bottom. We're going to line this text center in the text box. We're going to line the text box until it snaps to the bar, and then we're going to copy this 5 times. And with the last box, you guessed it, we're going to align it perfectly centered on the last bar here. We're going to select each one of these text boxes. We're going to go back to our shape format. We're going to align and we're going to distribute horizontally. Perfect. Now we're just going to change each one of these helmet labels to match our numbers. Now that we have all those labels done, we're just going to grab the first one. We're going to hold Option, bring it up to the top, and we're going to change the name to our title, which is Helmet Impact Test Results. Then we're going to select the text box. We're going to increase the font size to 28. And then we're going to center align it. And I think we might need to give this just a little more space, so we're going to move that up a bit, and then we'll clean up these bars at the bottom just by clicking and dragging until you can't see them anymore. And we'll do the same with the slots at the bottom, and there we go, nice clean slide. Now let's make the second one. We're going to start by holding Option and clicking and dragging in the left panel. You can also just copy and paste the slide, and then we're just going to select everything on this slide and hit delete. And then we're going to go back to this first slide. We're going to select this whole bar, we're going to hit copy, and we're going to paste this into the second slide. We're going to group this item temporarily, then we're going to click and hold to make it bigger, and drag it into place at approximately the left third of the slide. So maybe about there looks good. And then while we're at it, let's go ahead and zoom out, maybe not that much, zoom out a little bit, and let's make this a bit shorter so that we get more of this pink gradient coming up into our visible area. That looks nice. Then let's ungroup, Shift Option Command G. We're going to select the gradient bar piece and we're going to drag it down just so we have a little bit of room, because we want this to look like an exaggerated version of the bar here. So we need the space to look like it was scaled with the bar. Then we'll go back to the first slide, and we're actually going to group each one of these individual numbers and lines. Once you've grouped all of these, you're going to select the 500. You're going to copy and paste it onto the second slide. You're going to start by selecting the little line within the group. You're going to go over to size, and you're going to increase that size to 0.5 centimeters. Then you're going to grab the text, you're going to move it a little bit left, and you're going to increase its size to 28 points. Then you're going to grab the whole group, you're going to move it down until the line is just a little bit below the top of this rounded rectangle, and then you're going to realign this text with the line again. Then you're going to select the text again, you're going to change from light to medium, and you're going to select the group, copy and paste it. You're going to keep this aligned, move it down some, and change the 500 to a 400. Next, you'll go back to the slide you already built. You're going to select the title. You're going to hit copy and paste it onto the second slide. Then you're going to change the text within it to 487 units. For the 487, you're going to select that individually, and you're going to change it to Gibson Bold, and you're going to increase the font weight to 143 points. Then you'll select units, and you're going to change to Gibson Light, and you're going to increase the font weight to 60 points. Then we'll drag 487 units, approximately into place about here. Then we'll grab one of these text boxes here. We're just gonna copy and paste it. We're gonna slide it directly over and align it left under 487 units. We're gonna change to Gibson Light. We're gonna change the point weight to 25. Then we're gonna change the text to say measured impact resistance in blind test. Perfect. Let's move this just a bit closer, and that looks terrific. Now that we've built both slides, let's get animating and insert our slide zoom. We'll start by clicking the title on the first slide. We'll go over to the animation tab. We'll open the animation pane, and we're going to start with a simple wipe in. So scroll over to wipe, hit wipe in, and just change the duration to 1 second. And then we'll change the start timing from on click to with previous. That way this animation will start as soon as the slide opens. Then we'll click back on the title, we'll hit the animation painter, and we'll apply it to the first title on our bar. So we'll select this in the animation pane. We're gonna change the duration to ½ a second, and we'll change the delay to 0.25 seconds. Then we'll click on this first animation, we'll click the animation painter, we'll paint it onto the second. And for each of these titles, we're just gonna increase the delay from left to right by 0.25 each time. So it'll be 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, 1, 1.25, and 1.5. Once you've animated each of the bar titles, they should animate in a wipe in sequence from left to right. So next let's animate the left side, which are our y-axis labels. So let's start by clicking the first group here. We'll go to shape format and we'll open the selection pane because we're gonna need to name some of these groups. So let's find the group that's selected in the right side and we'll just name this 500 and do the same for the other numbers here. Once you've named all these groups, let's go back into the animation pane and start adding our animations to each of these. So we'll open the animation tab again, and we're just gonna add a fly in. We're gonna change the property to from left, and we're gonna click smooth start and smooth end. Though if you're a Windows user, you actually get a little prompt box that opens here that gives you a lot more options that you can choose from. So things like bounce end can be really cool, but on Mac, bounce end is just this checkbox that I know of, so it doesn't give you quite as many awesome options. Then we'll change the start to with previous. The duration is gonna stay at 0.5 seconds and our delay is gonna start at 0.25 seconds. And again, we're gonna stagger each of these animations in by 0.25 seconds. So we'll click on the first animation, we'll paint it onto the second, and then this one, the only change we'll make is to that delay. This will be 0.5 seconds and so on. Once you've animated all the y-axis labels, let's select the x-axis and animate this in with a stretch animation. So you're gonna scroll over until you find the stretch. We're gonna change the start to with previous and change the duration to 0.75 seconds, and you're done with that animation. So before we add any animations to our bar graph area, let's label all of these items in our selection pane so that we know what's what. So we'll start with the first slot, and we're gonna name all of these background objects slots 1 through 6. So go ahead and put those labels on, slots 1 through 6, left to right. Then once you've labeled all those background slots, let's do the same thing with the front bars, except we'll label those bars 1 through 6. Once you've labeled those, let's go back to the animation pane, and we're gonna select our first slot, and we're gonna animate this with a path animation and align. We'll go to effect options and select up. Now, before we move this item, pay attention to where this little green triangle is. We're just a little bit below the 200 line. We're almost in line with the top of this rounded rectangle. We're gonna need to move this rectangle so it starts below this hiding rectangle that we have at the bottom, but we need it to come back to the exact location it's in now. So let's click and drag while holding shift to move this object down. So see, the top is below the top of this rectangle, so we're in good shape. But now we need to come into the animation pane, select slot 1, and then we need to move this red circle by clicking and dragging while holding shift back until it's about at the same place where it was before. So once we get it there, you just release. And that should be about right. Now you're not going to be able to see this end animation perfectly yet because with the Neumorphic style, we only have shadows and those aren't going to show up on the preview. So there's two things you can do here. You can either do a play from and see where this ends up, and it looks like we nailed it actually, or you can simply move all of these items to match if we were a little bit off, and that's probably the easier method. So once you're in place here, just change the start to with previous. Our duration is gonna slide down to 1.5 seconds, and we're gonna have no delay on this first one, but we will be increasing the delay by 1/4 of a second as we move from left to right across each of these. So let's click back on it in the field. Let's click the animation painter. We'll paint the animation onto the second bar, and we'll continue painting animation onto each one of these. And then we're gonna move all 5 of these items on the right together so that we get them all perfectly aligned. So now that we have the animation painted onto all 5 of these, let's grab all 5 and slide them down until we're perfectly even with the one on the left. And you'll see that little prompt come up showing you that you're in place, and then you can select this rectangle on the left, and it looks like indeed we are perfectly aligned. And if you're any bit worried about it, you can always go to shape format, you can go to align and align top, and there we go. Next, you'll just select these in sequence starting with slot 2, and we're just going to increase the delay by 0.25 seconds as we move from left to right. Finally, let's animate all the bars on this slide. So we're just going to copy the corresponding slot animations and paint them to the same bars so they follow the exact same path. So let's start by clicking on the first slot. We'll go back to animations, click on the animation painter, and we'll paint it onto the first bar. Now again, it's going to move up. So we need to look at the location of the start point on this bar, and we need to get this end point exactly where the start point is. So it looks like we're a little bit above 100, maybe around 120. So we're going to drag this down, and looks like we went a little too far. So we're going to drag this back up, and we're just going to keep moving it, and you can use the arrow keys to get it exactly where you want it. And that looks perfect. Now we're going to do the same thing, the same exact process across here. So we're going to grab the second slot, animation painter, paint it onto the second one. And then we're going to align this arrow with where the start arrow is. We're going to do the same thing for each one. Now this next part is going to get a little weird. We're basically going to create an invisible object that we'll click on to start our slide zoom transition into this next slide. It's essentially going to be a placeholder so that we can allow ourselves to click the bar we want to click, but not accidentally click it before we're supposed to. So we're going to start by clicking on this gradient rounded rectangle, copy and paste this gradient rectangle. Now it doesn't really matter where we move it for now because we're going to be replacing this with something else soon. So then over in the format pane, we're going to go to format shape. We're going to go to no fill and no line. We're going to right click this object and we're going to hit save as picture. Now I recommend saving this as bar null. Now I've already done this on my computer, so I'm just going to hit cancel, but go ahead and save this as bar null and hit save. Once you've saved that object, you can actually delete the original object here. And then you're going to go to the insert tab. You're going to go to zoom and slide zoom. Now under slide zoom, you're going to click your slide number 2. Now I've already built this slide and I have a couple of references here. So you're just going to click on slide 2, which for us is going to be this one. And you're going to hit insert. That's going to come up with a photo of this slide. Now we don't want to use that one. So we're going to go over to zoom tools. Go ahead and hit this checkbox return to zoom because that's going to allow you to bounce back and forth, and then hit change image and double click on that bar null that we just created. That's going to bring your new shape in. So under the format pane, we're going to go over to size and we're going to change the width to 1.5 centimeters to match the size of our original bar. And then we're going to drag this in place. We're going to align it horizontally with our gradient bar. And then we're going to click and drag while holding shift and align it vertically with the top 500 line. So now we have this sort of null object in place. So you can't see it. It doesn't interfere with the slide, but it is there. Now what we're going to do with this is go to the animation tab. We're just going to use the appear animation. We're going to find it in the pane. We're going to change the start to with previous, and we're going to change the delay to 2.5 seconds. So now this object is going to appear right after our gradient rectangle slides in, and we'll be able to click it to immediately transition with a slide zoom into this next slide. So finally, we don't just want a straight transition, we want this slide to appear in a really neat way as well. So we're going to start by selecting both of these bars, and we're going to simultaneously add a fly in to them. We're going to change this to smooth start and smooth end, and we're going to change the start for both of them to with previous, so these start immediately when we click that slide zoom, and we don't have to do an awkward click once we've already zoomed into a blank slide. Then we'll go to the selection pane just so we can tell these apart. We're going to select this slot, we're going to rename this slot, and we're going to rename the other one bar. And while we're in here, let's go ahead and rename each one of these groups. So we'll rename this one 500 and we'll rename the other 400. We'll select the slot again in the animation pane. We're going to change the duration to 1.25 seconds and we're going to keep the delay at 0. Then we're going to select the bar in the animation tab. We're going to change the duration to 1 second and we're going to change the delay to 0.25 seconds. Then we'll select each of the number groups. We're going to select fly in. We're going to select smooth start and smooth end. We're going to change the duration to 0.75 seconds. Then we'll select the 500 in the pane. We'll change the start to with previous and we'll keep the delay at 0 for this one. But for the 400, we're going to change the delay to, you guessed it, 0.25 seconds. Then we're going to grab our big text box here. We're going to do a wipe in. We're going to keep the property at from bottom. We're going to change the duration to 1 second. We're going to change the start to with previous and there will be no delay. Then finally, we'll grab our last text box. We're going to fade this one in. We're going to change the start to with previous. We're going to keep the duration at 0.5 seconds, and we're going to change the delay to 0.5 seconds as well. And as I clicked back into this slide, I noticed that there was actually a line around this item. So we'll go back to the format shape item. We'll go to the fill section and just click on no line. If yours does insert with a line around your invisible object, just go ahead and get rid of that. Now we're ready to test this thing out. So let's play the slide and see how we did. That looks awesome. Now the really cool part about this slide is if we hover over this graph, look what happens. Our mouse changes to a cursor and we can click on it, and watch what happens when we do. We zoom all the way into the next slide, which animates directly in. And then if we want to click back out, we just click again and we bounce back out to the same slide, which reanimates back in for us. That's all for today's video. Thanks so much for watching. Later this week, I will be coming out with another video that shows how to apply all of these Neumorphic slides and principles to your own presentations, as well as some real-world use cases for some of these items. I know that's been a heavy topic of conversation in the comments, so I'm happy to answer those questions for you. If you'd like to see that video and future content, please remember to subscribe and click that bell so you get notified whenever I come out with some new content for you. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.